Hello and welcome to the program, UFO Warning. In this episode, we're talking about UFO sightings over Alaska. That's correct, UFO sightings over Alaska. Now, this first sighting we're looking at happened on May 11th, 2026, approximately 1:45 a.m. local time. Now, these are all reported over at newfork.org. Don't forget to mention them. The duration of this sighting is 90 minutes. Observers 3, military, it says. Location, Wasilla. My husband and I, and briefly one of our sons, witnessed several UFOs from inside our home while looking out our second-story bathroom window facing northwest. Later that evening, we also observed another craft from our second-floor landing facing southeast. It says the lights varied in color, estimated size indeterminate, viewed from land. Disc-shaped and triangular UFOs observed hovering and maneuvering over Wasilla from approximately 1:40 a.m. to 3:15 a.m. So you got two different type of craft here. One disc-shaped, and then it says the other triangular. Wow. On the night of May 11th, 2026, at approximately 1:40 to 1:45 a.m., Alaska Daylight Time, my husband alerted that the unidentified object we had observed about 1 week earlier had returned. We were awake unusually late that evening, and I had just started to drift off to sleep when he noticed it outside our second-story bathroom window facing northwest in Wasilla. About 1 week earlier, we had witnessed what appeared to be the same object at approximately 12:30 a.m. During that first sighting, I was too frightened to attempt recording it and remained frozen with fear. Because of that, I'm uncertain of the exact date of the earlier sighting. During both events, the object appeared in approximately the same area of the sky. This time, my husband and I decided to record the activity on our phones. The primary object appeared disc-shaped and displayed two main amber-colored lights. At times, it also flashed green and red lights. During the earlier sighting, 1 week prior, the object emitted an extremely bright sequential white light pattern for a brief moment. The object mostly hovered in place while occasionally moving smoothly and gracefully side to side. During the first sighting, it remained visible for approximately 20 minutes before we lost sight of it while retrieving binoculars. On the May 11th sighting, it remained present for a much longer duration. Approximately 10 minutes after observing the first object, a second and much brighter object appeared lower and to the right of the first one. We recorded the video of this object. Initially, it appeared disc-shaped with what looked like haze, smoke, or fog surrounding it. It then appeared to separate or multiply into two smaller circular objects. These objects moved with rapid, jerky motions, unlike conventional aircraft movement. One of the smaller objects appeared to repeatedly change shape, stretching from a circular or disc shape into a longer, flattened, frisbee-like form before returning to a shorter shape several times. The second object maintained a more consistent circular shape. A few minutes later, the light evolved into what appeared to be a bright green tinted circular central light with approximately 4 or 5 smaller lights or objects hovering very closely around it. It was difficult to determine whether these were separate craft or lights reflecting from a larger central object. Suddenly, all visible lights disappeared simultaneously. At approximately 1:58 a.m., our 7-year-old daughter unexpectedly woke up and knocked on our bedroom door after vomiting. She had not appeared ill before this and was not sick afterward. While assisting her, I briefly left the window. I returned at approximately 2:06 a.m. and observed the cluster of lights reappear in roughly the same location while the original hovering object remained visible nearby. The cluster again disappeared at approximately 2:09 a.m. At approximately 2:10 a.m., the original object appeared to display 3 visible lights instead of 2, including a central light that had not previously been visible. During that part of the sighting, our middle child, age 11, who had awakened because of the commotion involving his sister, also observed the object from the bathroom window. Later, while upstairs near our second floor landing and viewing southeast through our living room window, I observed another object that appeared different from the others. This occurred at approximately 2:53 a.m. This object appeared triangular or flattened triangular in shape from below and displayed 3 greenish lights. I recorded the video of this subject until approximately 2:57 a.m. My husband and I then checked the original object again from the bathroom window and observed that it was still present in approximately the same location, hovering and occasionally appearing closer than before. Throughout the sighting, the apparent distance of the object seemed to fluctuate. Afterward, while reviewing the videos on my phone in bed, an extremely loud screeching or interference-like sound suddenly erupted from the phone's video playback. The sound startled both of us significantly. I dropped my phone in fear. Earlier that night, before the first sighting began, I also noticed what sounded like a faint static or rustling electrical sound near my bedside lamp in the otherwise quiet room. My husband and I ultimately slept with a lamp on because the experience left us extremely unsettled. Despite sleeping only approximately 4 hours, I did not feel unusually fatigued the following day. It says, observer background information. My husband is an Army veteran who served approximately 10 years before being medically discharged for narcolepsy. I am a psychiatric mental health worker, health nurse practitioner. We have 3 school-aged children and have lived in this home for approximately 3 years. This was not our first unexplained sighting from this residence, but it was by far the most intense and prolonged. Weather conditions during the second event included overcast skies, cloud cover, and cool temperatures near 40 degrees, light winds from the east-northeast, and high humidity consistent with low-level atmospheric moisture. Visibility was somewhat reduced by cloud cover, though the objects remained clearly visible. Estimated distance, speed, and size remained indeterminate due to darkness and digital zoom. The objects appeared low on the horizon beyond the nearby tree line and remained nearly stationary for extended periods of time. Wow, that's really a very cool sighting. Very detailed, too. Thank you very much for doing that. Let's take a look at this next one. This sighting is dated November 11th, 2025, 9:30 p.m. local time, duration 1 to 2 hours, observers 4, location Diamond Ridge, Alaska, details backyard facing northwest, shape orb, color white and orange, size impossible to determine as they appear to be made of light. This is viewed from land. Now it says closest distance, rough estimate of 1 to 5,000 feet. Estimated speed slower than typical satellite, changed color, white and orange glowing lights or orbs. White and orange glowing lights appeared low in the northwestern sky on November 11th, 12th, and 13th, 2025 between 9:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. At first, they appeared to merge from thin air and move horizontally and vertically, changing directions, stopping, brightening, and fading. When one faded, another would appear. At times, as many as 4 could be seen simultaneously. On each of the past 3 nights, 3 of these lights grouped together, moving in unison as an undulating triangle, while each light still moved independently and became significantly brighter, much brighter than Jupiter. After about an hour, the white lights stopped appearing and orange lights began rising vertically from closer to the horizon. These ascended slowly, brightened, and faded. They were visible only in one region of the low northwestern sky. No, trees block our true horizon, so this report applies only to what we could see above the tree line. I am submitting this report on the morning of November 14th. For the past 3 nights, the lights have appeared at the exact same time in the same region and displayed the same pattern of behavior and activity. This is updated November 17th. We are still observing the lights. Last night was the 6th consecutive night, and they continue to appear on schedule. The past 2 nights have been cloudy, with snowfall last night. yet the lights were still visible through the clouds with binoculars during what appears to be peak activity around 11 p.m. 3 nights ago, we went to the beach at 8 p.m. to get an open view of the western horizon. We quickly located 4 lights moving erratically directly over the water to the west. Atmospheric effects may explain those sightings, so I am not placing much weight on them, but there is a possibility the lights moved west to northwest. Additional observations now confirm north each night, and that we only see them once they reach the area visible from our backyard facing northwest. That same night, the last clear night, after the orange orbs faded around 11:45 p.m., I walked up the road for a better view to the north. 2 larger lights or objects were moving very slowly and very low, partially behind the hill. They were separated by approximately 500 to 1,000 feet and moved horizontally with no sound and no blinking lights. These lights appeared different from the orbs, displayed color, and were either larger or much closer. The area they passed over consists of spruce forest, with no infrastructure, roads, or buildings. The overall region is rural. Additional context, I tracked the white lights with an 8-inch Dobsonian telescope and can confirm there was no visible physical structure. They appeared to emerge from the air and vanish the same way. The brightening did not appear to be caused by a drone turning or an object approaching. The altitude appeared to be above the cloud layer. I cannot say much about the objects seen to the north. That's wild. It sounds like a true orb sighting to me. This sighting happened on December 20th, 2024, 4:45 p.m. Duration 10 minutes. Observers 2. Location Anchorage, Alaska. The craft was observed on the left side of Anchorage in the Muldoon area near the Chukka Mountains. Shape unknown, color red and blue light. Estimated size, the craft appeared to be about the size of a bus. Wow. Viewed from land, direction from viewer east of Anchorage near the Chukka Mountains in the Muldoon area. Yeah, I've been up there. These mountains are pretty cool. Angle of elevation 45 degrees, heading stationary. Closest distance approximately 2 miles. That's close enough. The craft appeared stationary. Lights on object changed color. Aircraft nearby. Odd lights, too large to be an airplane. My husband and I went out to fill up our car with gas. During the drive, we noticed extremely bright lights. 2 lights on top that would switch to blue lights on the bottom, with a smaller white light in the middle. At first, we thought it was an airplane coming over Chukka Mountains and heading toward Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airports. My husband and I commented on the strange lights, so we continued watching them for several minutes. The craft changed from red to blue approximately every 20 seconds, and a few times we saw a smaller white light briefly appear between the other 2 lights. Another unusual detail was that the craft never appeared to move and seemed completely stationary the entire time we observed it. A commercial airliner was traveling toward the mountains at a higher altitude and essentially flew over the craft. As we were about to make a left turn onto Boniface Parkway, the craft suddenly shot straight down at what appeared to be a very high rate of speed toward the tree line and disappeared from view. Once we arrived at the Chevron gas station on Boniface, I looked to my right toward the area where we had seen the object, and it had returned to its original position. I watched it again for approximately 2 minutes while my husband filled the gas tank, and once again, the craft suddenly shot straight downward. The first time I saw it descended so rapidly was enough to convince me that what we witnessed that night was truly a UFO. Well, just the idea of this thing is zipping around like that, shooting straight down, shooting straight off. I mean, that's wild. I could just almost imagine this thing just like zipping around like a laser or something. Very cool. This sighting's from December 13th, 2024. Duration 10 seconds. Observers 2. Pilot/military. Location Alaska, USA. Details near the Old Glen Highway off-ramp. Shape chevron. Color black. Estimated size difficult to determine, but it appeared to be about the size of a large motorhome viewed from land. Direction from viewer slightly to the right and above while turning on the left bend, approaching the bridges of Nick. That's K-N-I-K. Angle elevation 45 degrees, heading toward Eagle River, about 200 feet away. Speed extremely fast. We could not actually see it move, only the results of its movement. Characteristics: lights on objects. Large V-shaped triangular craft with white lights. While driving toward the valley with a coworker, I randomly looked up and saw a large V-shaped object approximately 200 feet in the air. I first noticed its outline because of the large white lights. At that point, the entire object appeared to shift slightly south toward Anchorage, and again I could see the outline with lights on the underside. After the second appearance, it shot away at an extremely high rate of speed, but the lights showed no trailing or dragging effects. The trajectory appeared in the sky gone, with the lights completely disappearing for about a half a second between each apparent position shift. Everything happened very quickly, but from what I remember, there was one forward light and two white lights on each side of the V for a total of 5 lights. I lived in Anchorage for a long time, and this is the first time I have personally seen what I could classify as truly unusual and completely unrelated to normal aircraft or military activity. I know there is a service road right off the old Glen Highway off-ramp, which is essentially directly below where this object was located. Because we were driving, we did not hear any sounds, nor did I notice any other vehicles slowing down nearby. Both my coworker and I saw the craft. My coworker mentioned that it looked like it was skipping through the air. The first triangle was the craft with lights, and then approximately 200 to 300 feet further away appeared the same craft with lights again, but it did not seem to physically travel between those points. Instead, it appeared capable of shifting positions instantly without conventional movement. No other lights or flashes were observed. It was fairly dark in that area, so it's possible the craft was moving conventionally while turning a slice off between movements. My first thought was that this would actually be a perfect location for secret Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson activity. However, as a lifelong resident of Anchorage, I cannot believe that area would be large enough to conceal anything as massive as this craft appeared to be. Yeah, up there in Alaska, just seeing this chevron-shaped UFO darting around. This sighting stated March 20th, 2022 at 10:26 p.m. Duration less than 5 minutes. Observers 1. Location Kasilof, Alaska. Details west of Kasilof, near or above Cook Inlet. Shaped circle. Characteristics: lights on object. Change color. Bright circular object hovering over Cook Inlet. I saw the object out of my cabin window before going to bed. It appeared as a bright circular shape hovering in the air. It grew larger, then smaller, and eventually disappeared. It was a little before 10:30 p.m. and I was getting ready for bed. I walked to my window and immediately noticed a very bright light hovering far away in the sky. I knew right away that it was neither a star or an airplane. I grabbed my phone and opened the door and started recording. The object was clearly spinning while remaining stationary over one spot. It flashed several different colors and appeared to grow larger, then suddenly much smaller before disappearing completely. After looking at a map, I realized that the object was very close to or directly over Cook Inlet. I have never seen anything like it in my life. It was also a very clear night, and the stars were highly visible, confirming that this object was not a star or a conventional aircraft. Just imagine being up there in the middle of nowhere and seeing one of these things. That is wild. This sighting happened at September 25th, 2014. It says 11 p.m. Duration 4 to 6 minutes. Observers 2, Denali State Park. I was driving and it was 11 p.m. at night. We had just passed over Clam Gulch Bridge. It was dark and there was nothing out there. Absolutely nothing. I noticed around 8 red and white lights. It was like one red light, then one white light, and so on. It was flying very low. I said, "Mom, what the heck is that?" She said, "What?" I said, "Look up there at the lights." She said, "Oh my, I don't know." I was so scared and weirded out. I said, "Mom, do you see that?" She said, "Yes." As I looked up through the windshield, all I could see was this long object slowly going by. It was at least 2 football fields in length. My mom just kept looking at it, saying, "What is that? What is that?" I said, "Mom, it looks like a big ship of some sort." She said, "I have never seen anything like that before." The object was slowly flying over, moving to the right of me. I could not believe my eyes. I said, "Mom, what the heck with this? I'm getting out of here. I'm not going to be that dummy who pulls over and gets taken." I drove 90 miles per hour for the rest of the way to Fairbanks. I was scared, and I was not stopping for anything except the police. My gas was going down quickly. I could hardly get out of the car in Cantwell to pump gas because my legs were shaking so badly. I kept looking up at the sky as I drove. Mom kept saying, "Slow down." All I could say was, "I've got to get out of here." She said, "Baby, you've been saying that for the last 2 hours." And that's it. Whatever this thing was, this person definitely was startled by it. I wouldn't recommend that 90-mile-an-hour part, especially in rural Alaska out there by Denali. Could hit a deer or a moose or a bear or something. We'll do 3 more sightings here and wrap this up. This one's November 20th, 2014, 10 p.m. local time. Duration 30 seconds, observers 2. Shape unknown, lights on object. Flat platform with intense white, red, and blue lights, silently hovering only about 30 feet above a residential area in town. While driving with a friend on the Steese Highway between 3rd Street and 10th Avenue, we saw a very brightly lit craft hovering only about 30 feet above the residential area near the VFW. It caught my attention because the lights were so intense and it was hovering there almost motionless, though not completely still. At first, I thought it was a new street light, but then it moved slightly, and the body of the object was either completely black or invisible. We were stopped at the light on 3rd Street and Steese Highway, and nobody else seemed to notice it except the 2 of us. I was going to pull off the road after the intersection, but decided against it and kept driving. Perhaps what others were doing as well, but it seemed as though the people completely ignored it. I rolled the window down to get a better look and listened to see if it was a helicopter, though it seemed oddly out of place if it were. I have seldom, if ever, seen helicopters hovering that close to residential rooftops without police or emergency activity nearby. It seemed unusual to me. It was about the size of a large single-rotor helicopter and either had a flat bottom holding the array of lights or it was simply a flat platform altogether. I could not make out anything above the lights, as if it were completely invisible or inky black against the night sky. It made no noise, and the platform with the lights appeared rectangular, though it could have been triangular from my perspective as I drove past it. I kept asking my friend to look for the craft itself and describe it to me, but he had no explanation and could not see anything above the lights either. Even with his head out of the window, he simply dismissed it as some sort of military thing and paid little more attention to it. The craft tilted slightly and moved a few feet here and there, almost like a bee collecting pollen. I kept glancing at it as I drove past and looked for it again in the rearview mirror after it should have come back into view. Oddly enough, the experience made me pay much more attention to the night sky afterward. I shared my story with a few people to see if they had seen anything similar or if their reactions were similar to my friends. I soon found 2 others who had also seen unusual crafts, and both of them shrugged the experience off as well. I noticed that much taller and brighter streetlights began appearing around town less than a week later. The first new streetlight I saw was at the Ford dealership, and it was nearly the same height and intensity as the lights on the craft I had seen earlier. However, they did not span the same area and were clearly stationary. Even so, my eyes are immediately drawn to those lamps because their brightness is so similar to what I saw on the craft. Last night on April 10th, 2015 at around 1:30 a.m., I saw another one of these strange crafts hovering over a community just off Chena Hot Springs Road. There was a bank of mailboxes near Bias Drive, so this time I pulled over to get a better look. Again, I heard absolutely nothing, and the craft appeared to be lazily going about its business in the same manner as the previous one I had seen. This one slowly moved toward Steese Highway and went over the ridge toward town. I noticed that two other people had also pulled off the road and were standing next to a vehicle talking. I wanted to gain a higher vantage point near Weller School so we could exchange eye contact as I drove away. Once I reached the school, there was no sign of the craft anywhere over the part of the city I could see. I get the impression that these objects disguise themselves as stars or sometimes as very bright streetlights. I also think people refuse to believe they saw something unusual even when they cannot explain what they witnessed. I noticed similarities between my observations and those described by others in this database, such as the red, mostly white and blue lights, flat bottoms, silent and stealthy movement, and even a sonar-like sound I once heard while reading late one night, though I never looked outside to see whether anything was there. Man, that's quite a sighting there. The sightings dated March 31st, 2014, 2:30 a.m. local time, duration 15 minutes, observers 2, location Wasilla, shape triangle, characteristics, lights on object, emitted beams, triangle craft silently maneuvering over Wasilla at 2:30 a.m. At 2:30 a.m. on March 31st, 2014, I was walking to my bedroom when I noticed a bright whitish light out the window to the northeast. I immediately told my girlfriend to come look. We both ran out to the balcony and I watched this extremely bright light with colored pulsating lights on either side of it just floating there silently and heading in our direction. We watched the object for about 5 minutes as it crept closer, still silent, with lights beaming out in front of it and growing brighter as it approached. I said, "This thing is going way too slow to be an airplane." My girlfriend said, "I've never seen a light like that before." There were no clouds in the sky, only stars. As the craft moved directly overhead, we could see it was triangular in shape with two windows on the underside looking into the cockpit area. A yellowish-green light coming from inside also illuminated lines along the bottom of the craft. There were lights on all 3 points of the triangle. It was approximately 500 feet above us and about 200 to 300 feet wide. We could hear a slight humming noise when it was directly overhead, but otherwise it made no sound. It proceeded on a southwestern heading over my girlfriend's house. I have seen many airplanes, and this was not an airplane. This thing defied the laws of physics. It does defy the law of physics, but at the same time, it almost sounds physical. That's wild. Okay, we'll do one last one here and wrap this up. This last sighting is dated September 5th, 2013, at 10 p.m. local time. Approximate, it says. Duration 5 minutes, observers 4, location Fairbanks, shape disc, lights on object. Then it says all caps. Huge saucer flying into Fort Wainwright. I was driving home from the Walmart area when I noticed a light in the sky that seemed normal at first. Then I saw another light following it. I wondered if they were helicopters flying close to the ground, which can happen since we are near a military runway. They hover over the neighborhoods at all hours. I noticed that the lights were moving in perfect unison. I realized it was actually one aircraft and pointed it out to the other people in my vehicle. Everyone saw it and agreed that it must have been gigantic because from our vantage point, it appeared about 3 feet wide visually. If you held your arms straight out in front of you and spread out your hands about 3 feet apart at head level, that is roughly how large it appeared from where we were viewing it. Everyone started saying, "What is that?" Then the passenger in the front seat exclaimed, "I can see it. It's a giant saucer." Nobody else could clearly make out the shape except her because the night sky had the perfect overcast darkness that made the object nearly invisible. It made absolutely no sound. I rolled down my window to check whether it might have been a jet or something similar. The military may have been expecting it, so either it was a military technology, which would be incredible considering they could bring something like that right over our heads without any reports, at least none that I could find, or perhaps they are connected with whatever it was. That is something. I mean, sounds like a bunch of young people driving along, look out the car window and see this gigantic saucer. It's quite a ways away and still looked big. That is really neat. A lot of cool sightings there from Alaska. Always so much fun going over to Newfork and seeing what they have to say. Until next time, this is UFO Warning. Over and out.